We want not only the bridge to be an economic development boost, but we will be working with the City of Cleveland, with the Cleveland Clinic, about ways to create more throughput, more accessibility with the city streets that are involved. There's many, many things that we have discussed with them that can be done to improve it throughout the period of this construction. And we will remain open to changes that may occur. This decision, as you know, has been in the making for about 10 years. And I am confident that the bridge and its reconstruction is the right thing to do now. We have to have the record of decision. I continue to commit to you that we will work with the people of Cleveland to assure that economic development outcomes are things that you want.
Ms. Molitoris, I certainly commend the restructuring of not only the area but the country. I mean, it certainly needs it. We can see, you know, by the bridges falling and so forth, that the needs to be restructured. And I certainly commend the money being spent on it, even as Franklin Roosevelt did in the early 30s. My question is on the rail system, which you are an expert or the expert on. Are we ever going to have anything approaching what they have in Europe or even Japan in the way of a rail system here?
Thank you for your question. As you saw, Governor Strickland and 7 other governors made a historic decision to sign the MOU on Monday in Cleveland, or in Chicago, and the mayor of Chicago. What we are talking about now, as you heard in the introduction, is what we're calling a quick start, 79-mile-an-hour traditional speed, because people in the center of our state, because this line would reach about 60% of our population, haven't had service for almost 40 years. And part of the success that we need to weave into this project is the opportunity for people to use it. There's a doctor in Columbus who has as her theme, the choices we make are about the choices we have. And the opportunity for people to use a system for many purposes, whether they be business-related, personal, recreational, is very, very important. But what is important to understand is that it's a two-pronged strategy. We have the quick start to get people an opportunity as soon as possible and get the economic development returns for Ohio. At the same time, we have the Ohio Hub Plan, which is the higher speed service. It's not 200 miles an hour, but it is a high-speed service which will connect to 7 different states. And so we are doing what you might call simultaneous or continuous engineering. We think it's a common sense approach on how to do it. And although everyone always tries to use Europe as the comparable, in fact, Europe is pretty, they wish they had our freight system, sir. They wish they could move their goods as efficiently and effectively as our freight system does. We're creating a system where both are going to win. We think it's going to be good for jobs in Ohio. We think that organized labor and working men and women will be able to build stations and all sorts of multi-use facilities which will become magnets for economic growth in this state. So we believe we're attending to the immediate and the long term. Good afternoon.
My question is more philosophical than process-oriented. You answered the question over here a couple questions ago with the process of citizen input into the decision-making and planning for Ohio transportation. But I also know coming in, you know, even as I'm seeing the signs on Carnegie for Save the Ramps, when I get off the Shoreway on the west side, I see close the ramps. So my question is about the theory and the principle of what is the role for self-determination in public policy planning?
Now, we could stay here for a couple hours on that one. Let me tell you what my commitment is. And that commitment comes from the governor, of course, through all his cabinet. And that is that success is really going to be about partnership. I mentioned that several times in my remarks, and I believe it. I know it works. And so what it means is that ODOT has to change its own practice. Listening more, talking less. Understanding the implications of citizen input. I welcome citizen input. I think, and I've asked, we need partners. We need public partners. We need private sector partners. And I personally believe there is a good answer for almost every problem. Consensus really means that none of us get 100%. We come to a place of rallying around a win-win situation for everyone. That's what happened with the 21st Century Task Force. One of the members told me he walked in the first day and said, this will never work, because there were so many people of pretty broad, different agendas and backgrounds. And at the end of the day, they were able to think beyond themselves to the good of the whole. And I think that's our goal. Do we have this down to a science? I think we're doing well in some ways. We can be much better. What we have to do is become a trusted partner that you have confidence in, so that you will trust us enough to work with us and be our partner. Was that philosophical enough?
Good afternoon. I'm Cleveland City Councilman Zachary, and in January I introduced and we subsequently got passed the no texting while driving legislation.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there are 2,600 people who got killed in America, 330,000 that were maimed or injured. And even yesterday in upper New York, an 8-year-old girl was injured once again, and the mother was life-flighted. And yesterday there were 4 senators who introduced legislation to ban texting throughout the United States of America, and 14 states have already banned it. I tried to get to our governor last week to ask the question, but I didn't get there. I'm just wondering, will the administration here in the state of Ohio do what 14 other states in the District of Columbia have done to ban this practice of texting while driving?
Thank you so much for your question, and thank you for your leadership in bringing this huge safety concern into the practice, and actually you passed something at City Council, did you, on this subject? First of all, safety is number one at ODOT. You cannot do anything if you're not safe. And that's why in our budget bill, we included language making seatbelt use a primary offense. We didn't get there. We had a lot of pushback, to say the least. We're not giving up on that. We're not going to give up on, we had another safety feature in our budget, and that was cameras to identify speeders in work zones, because many people have been killed there too. So our focus is safety wherever we can increase it. We are now reviewing our entire safety program at ODOT and looking to bring together what are remarkably good programs and uniting them to be stronger and more cohesive. We have not yet pursued, as you well know, the governor just got through a very difficult budget process, and we have not yet begun the discussion on other bills that are coming up.